Sound off with me, folks, on an NBA Cup loss to the Brooklyn Nets. Do I want to talk about this game? No. Am I going to talk about this game? Yes, because that is what we do here on the Sound Off postgame podcast presented by Xfinity Mobile. Now, this game was a relatively ugly offensive game for the Boston Celtics, okay? They come out of the gates, shoot 37% during the first quarter. Then over the final three quarters of the game, they commit 13 turnovers in those final three quarters alone. It just felt like they couldn't get into a rhythm. There was miscommunication happening across the board. It just didn't seem, for some reason, whatever that reason is, that the players on the Celtics roster just weren't on the same page tonight. Bottom line, that's what it felt like from start to finish during this game. There was no rhythm. The communication was not quite at a level that we've seen out of this team over the past couple of weeks when they won 8 of their previous 12 games. It just seemed like they just weren't on the same page during this game. And it happens, right? We're not going to make excuses. It happens to the best teams in the league, but it certainly happened to the Boston Celtics tonight. And on the other side of the ball, the Brooklyn Nets did not have the same issues. They scored 70 points during the middle quarters of this game, 40 during the second quarter, 30 during the third quarter. And those two quarters are when this game changed. Again, 13 turnovers for the Celtics over those final three quarters. And during those two where the Nets made their run, how many turnovers did the Celtics commit? I'm going to tell you right now. 6 during the second quarter alone. In the third quarter, another 5. So 11 turnovers during those two quarters where the Nets wound up scoring 70 points. 10 points off turnovers during the third quarter and another 10 off turnovers during the second quarter. So 20 of those 70 points that the Brooklyn Nets scored during quarters 2 and 3 were off of Boston's turnovers. You just can't give extra possessions to a team that does not have the same level of talent as you. And certainly, I think even the Nets, in the back of their minds, they might not say it, but I think even they know that the Celtics were the more talented team that took the court tonight. We've also got to point out that this was not Derek White's night. Okay, we've come to expect very high things out of Derek White. He's been a borderline all-star in the past couple of seasons. Rose up from, what was it, outside of the top 100 in terms of the NBA rank. Rose up into, what was it, 20, 28, 29, something like that this season. I can't remember the exact number, but he has risen so far up the ranks. Everyone's come to expect a lot out of him, and he simply did not play well tonight. This might have been one of his worst NBA performances of his career. 2 for 13 from the field, had a turnover, was involved in a couple of those miscommunications, missed a couple bunnies around the basket, just things that you don't typically see out of a player of Derek White's stature. And that's the type of night it was for the Celtics. Like, no one really had it going. I know that Jaylen Brown wound up leading the team and scored 26 points on 18 shot attempts, but just outside of that, it really didn't feel like anyone had it going. Neemias, Queta, great job crashing the glass. He had an excellent game from that perspective. But no one really was able to play at the level that we've come to expect at both ends of the court and for long durations of this game. They were like brief stretches where either one player or the team would give a little bit of a signal that there was some life over there on the Celtics side, and then that moment would fizzle away and the Nets would go on a run. That being said, the Celtics did make a run. They somehow almost overcame Derek White's rough performance. They somehow almost overcame those turnover woes and giving up 70 points during the middle quarters. How? Well, they got a little bit of energy behind them, and it started when Hugo Gonzalez was out on the court to start the fourth quarter. He injected a little bit of energy into the team. The Celtics started forcing turnovers. They started finishing possessions defensively, grabbing rebounds, forcing misses. Their lead, the deficit was at 18 points during the final minute of the third quarter. The Celtics went on a 22-6 run to cut that lead all the way down to 2 Jordan Walsh put home a dunk to cut that deficit all the way down to 2. And at that moment, it felt like, oh my God, all of these things that have gone against the Celtics tonight, all of these things that they haven't done well, it felt like they actually might pull off this comeback win. And the crowd was, do you want to talk about a crowd pop? When Jordan Walsh put that dunk home to bring this to a 2-point game, the crowd was energized. Like they were ready to celebrate a monster comeback win. And that's when the wheels fell off again for the Celtics. Those same things that were creeping up throughout the first 3 quarters crept back in during those critical moments when they could have taken a lead, when they could have finished off this comeback win. During those most critical moments, they either couldn't get a stop or they couldn't put together a good quality offensive possession. It just seemed like that miscommunication came right back into the fold where not everyone was on the same page and they just weren't able to execute strong and solid offensive possessions that would lead to quality shots. Now, another critical stretch of this game began when Jaylen Brown picked up his 5th foul with just under 6 minutes left during the 3rd quarter. And I know we already touched on that, but let's touch on it again here. The Celtics challenged that call. It was an offensive foul on Jaylen Brown. His left elbow made contact with the defender's face. However, the Celtics challenged it, in my perspective at least. It looked like they were looking for an approximate foul, that the defender was going to be called for a defensive foul before that elbow from Jaylen Brown. The refs reviewed it. They said, call is not overturned. The call stands. So Jaylen Brown did pick up his 5th foul and therefore had to check out of the game with 5:52 left in the 3rd quarter. Now you're leaving the Celtics, a team that's been struggling offensively, without their best player, without their best scorer, without one of the league's most elite scorers and consistent scorers this season. That put the Celtics at a significant disadvantage as they went through those final about 6 minutes of the 3rd quarter. And that's when the Nets, again, went on their run and pulled ahead by 18. Now, that was one challenge that didn't go the Celtics' way. Joe Mazzulla challenged it. The call was upheld. Jaylen Brown picks up his 5th foul, heads to the bench. Moments later, Jordi Fernandez, the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets, he challenged a play that also went against the Celtics. It was a foul when Anthony Simons was taking a 3-pointer and a foul was called, said the defender hit him on the hand. He was going to go to the line for 3 free throws. Now, this is a guy who's a 90% free throw shooter for his career. You've got to imagine he's going to make those 3 free throws and continue to get the Celtics back into the game. However, Jordi Fernandez wins the challenge. And right after that, Luka Garza was the center on the floor for the Celtics, as we all know, and I think he would admit, not the most athletic big man in the league or the longest big man in the league in terms of reach and wingspan. He's the guy that's got to do the jump ball for the Celtics against Nick Claxton, one of the most athletic, longer centers in the league. Claxton won the jump ball. Shortly thereafter, the Nets score a layup, and right there, with that challenge from Jordi Fernandez, that's a 5-point swing right there. Okay, no free throws, no 3 free throws for Anthony Simons, and then a layup at the other end for the Brooklyn Nets. That moment is really when the game started to change and really when things started to go in Brooklyn's favor, and that's when they went on that run to pull ahead by 18 points, which proved to be an insurmountable number for the Boston Celtics. So there's 2 coaches' challenges. I thought both of them were good challenges. Joe Mazzulla has to challenge that. Even if he thinks they might not win, he has to challenge that to try to preserve Jaylen Brown's 5th foul, keep him at 4, keep him out on the court, hopefully give the offense a chance. He just didn't win the challenge. And then Jordi Fernandez did. It was a great challenge. The defender did make contact, but it did not interrupt the shooting stroke of Anthony Simons, and therefore it was not a foul. So right there, 2 challenges, 2 huge moments that lead to a 5-point swing for the Brooklyn Nets, and then they went on a run to finish the win from there. And look, you got to give credit where credit is due. Listen, I know some of you out there might think that I'm biased. I've got to say, I watched the Brooklyn Nets tonight. That did not look like a 2-12 team. It didn't. They were a 2-12 team entering this game. They did not play like it tonight. They played like a team that was connected. They played like a team that has elite athleticism, length, defensive connectivity. And then Michael Porter Jr., as I said, was the best player in the game, particularly at the offensive end. 16 points during the fourth quarter alone, 33 points to lead the game overall. He was excellent across the board. And really, the Nets were as a team. I was very impressed by what I saw from them tonight. Again, that did not look like a 2-12 team. Now, did the Celtics allow them to play that way? Sure, you could make that argument. That could be on the Celtics at least a little bit, maybe a lot of it. But you got to give credit where credit is due. That Nets team played a very strong basketball game tonight. And I've always said this, Brad Stevens used to use this term as well. Every game in the NBA is its own entity. And there's always talent on the other team. You never know how that talent is going to show up. Tonight, the talent for the Brooklyn Nets showed up and played a great game across the board. Got to give credit where credit is due. The Celtics should have played better. There's no question about that. Boston is a better team than it showed tonight. But Brooklyn played well enough to win the game regardless of that. So credit where credit is due, a great game by the Brooklyn Nets. All right, we're going to take one comment from our fans tonight because most of them weren't feeling too fuzzy and warm after this one. The holiday spirit certainly isn't feeling strong in Celtics Nation after this loss. So we're going to take one comment. This one's coming in from Charlie Gessner on a few observations on what he thinks led to this loss. So Charlie, you're up here. Let's see what you got to say. All right, as promised, the comment coming in from Charlie Gessner says, D. White, 2 for 13, didn't help. Couldn't defend Porter off the high pick and roll all night. Queta gave him too much space after the roll all night. Nice night from Simons, who kept them in it. All right, let's go one by one here, starting at the top with Derek White, 2 for 13. As I said, it is difficult for any team to win when one of your best players has a night like Derek White had tonight. 2 for 13, a turnover, missed some bunnies around the rim. Listen, it's going to happen. It was a clunker for Derek White. That was a big contributor to the Celtics not winning this game. They still had a chance, but it is so hard to win NBA games when one of your best players just simply doesn't play well. Derek White had an off night tonight. It happens. Going into the next part of this comment, couldn't defend Porter off the high pick and roll all night. Queta gave him too much space after the roll all night. Certainly, we can consider this, right? Like maybe the Celtics needed to switch up their coverages a little bit. Maybe it was just simply a fact of their defenders not executing the coverage that Joe Mazzulla and his staff wanted them to execute. There was one comment after this game about the coaching staff not making any adjustments. Well, we don't know. Maybe they might have made adjustments and the players just didn't execute it. We were not in the huddles. We don't know. Okay, so don't always make assumptions. It is possible that the players just simply did not execute what the coaching staff put together as a game plan or as adjustments within the game. But it was Michael Porter Jr. put the pressure on the Celtics. He was great on the perimeter with some catch-and-shoot three-pointers. He was great off the dribble with the pick and roll. And with this roll that we're talking about here from Charlie, that Queta gave him too much space after the roll. Sometimes as a defender, and in particular a 7-foot defender, you're put in a tough spot. Tonight, Michael Porter Jr. was putting Queta in a tough spot all night long, and the rest of the Celtics defense was not able to adjust to help Queta in those situations. Michael Porter Jr. made the shots that he was given, and he is a main reason why the Brooklyn Nets were able to grab this win. Now, last comment here. Nice night from Anthony Simons, who kept them in it. It's funny, maybe not funny, but I turned to one of my coworkers when Jaylen Brown went out with his 5th foul, and I said, it's Anthony Simons time. Like, the Celtics need an offensive punch, and Anthony Simons did his very best to provide it. Wound up scoring 23 points during this game, 10 of 16 shooting from the field, and much of that scoring did come during the second half. 7 points during the fourth quarter, 13 points overall during the second half. So he did try to give the Celtics an opportunity to win this game, driving to the basket. Like, this wasn't just three-pointers. And sometimes we've seen him this season heat up from long distance. Tonight he was actually cooking, going to the basket. That's how he got the Celtics back into this game. Of those 13 points, none of them were from three-point range. He was putting pressure on the defense by getting to the rim and making shots, making floaters, putting the ball off the backboard with blow-by drives. So it was great to see from him that when Jaylen Brown went out, he was able to step up and give the Celtics a little bit of that offensive punch that they needed to try to have an opportunity to win this game. And they did have an opportunity to win this game. They simply did not take advantage of that opportunity. Number one, two things can be true. One is that they earned the opportunity to potentially win this game. They did that. Two is that they gave away that opportunity once they got there. Okay, both of those things can be true, and that is true of what happened to the Boston Celtics tonight. Now, as is always in the NBA, you don't have too long to sit and sulk after a loss. Okay, this is a tough one, but you out there, the Celtics down there on the court, we're going to be back out for a game on Sunday hosting the red-hot Orlando Magic. It's time to turn the page, okay? The Celtics have already beaten this Magic team once down in Orlando. A couple of great games, by the way, that we saw down at the arena down there in Orlando. And I'm estimating and I'm predicting that we're going to see another good one here Sunday night. Tip-off is at 6 o'clock. That game is on NBC Sports Boston. You can catch Brian Scalabrine and myself at 5:20 in the afternoon and evening that day for a pregame show from right back here in the studio. We'll be previewing the game before we toss over to Celtics pregame live on NBC Sports Boston. This has been another episode of Sound Off with the Boston Celtics presented by Xfinity Mobile, and I hope to hear from you again Sunday after the Boston Celtics take on the Orlando Magic.